In this video, I want to talk about the cost of creating new housing. Now, I'm passionate and I'm interested in helping affordable housing projects in the future. I actually audited an affordable housing company in my times at a mid-tier accounting firm here in Brisbane. But in this video, I want to specifically break down the cost of bringing land to market and the cost of constructing a house and bringing those numbers together to see if you ran a non-for-profit property development company, how much would it actually cost to bring land and house to market and sell it essentially for no margin? Now, there's not going to be many developers out there who want to work for or make a loss or earn no money. But I wanted to go through this to give people a context and view of the baseline cost of creating new housing and to discuss some ways in the long term that there might be more affordable housing projects out there. One of the things I've personally thought about is a housing project southwest of Brisbane, where there's lots of land. You're in between Brisbane and the Gold Coast. There's lots of land internally there in that southwestern pocket between those two major cities. And could we create more open plan suburbs, which aren't these 300 square meter blocks, which are more of the standard, 1990s style suburbs with the 600 square meter blocks and nice 3-bed, 1-bath homes or 3-bed, 2-bath homes. And so that's what I want to run through in terms of bringing land to market and bringing a house to market, because I'm going through a build process this year with 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom homes. And I can tell you the square meter rates that I'm actually getting from the builders, as well as what the data says in terms of land prices across Australia. So let's kick off with land. So when we look at land in Greater Sydney, the median lot price for just bare bones land is $641,000. which is 72% higher than the national average. But Sydney is an outlier, and so that's okay. It's the most sought after place to live in Australia. It's the most expensive capital city. So it makes sense that it sits far higher in terms of the land cost. Now, Greater Melbourne, we're looking at $394,000, and Southeast Queensland, $374,000. Perth, $245,000, and Adelaide, $258,000. So what this is telling us is that the cheapest land in Australia is around $245,000 just to bring to market. And Brisbane, for example, or Southeast Queensland is around $375,000. So at a base cost to just bring the land to market, you're looking at $375,000. Now, what are we're looking at in terms of square meter rates to build houses at this point in time of a reasonable spec? Now, the builds that I'm doing are with a couple of different builders, but the square meter rates land around $2,500 to $3,000 a square meter. So for a 100 square meter home, which is 3-bed, 2-bath, no carport, you're looking at around $250,000 to $300,000 in today's prices to bring that product to market. And so if we look at Southeast Queensland, median or average price for land according to the Urban Development Institute of Australia's 2024 land report, which is an absolute mouthful. But if we look at that Urban Development Institute's report, $375,000 for land. Now, if you're able to do $300,000 for your build, you're looking at $675,000. If you're able to bring that build cost down to around $250K, you're looking all in around $625,000. So what this means is the builders and developers can bring product to market for around $625,000 to $675,000. But in reality, they want to have their builder's margin on top of the developer's margin, which would be 10 to 20% generally. And so at a 10% margin, you're adding an extra $60,000 to $70,000 on those costs. So that's where you get into that $710 to $740 range for housing. And if you're getting a 20% margin, it brings up towards the $800,000 mark of when that product is brought to market, because there's a lot of risk involved in subdividing land and then going out and constructing all these houses. It's very capital intensive. There's a lot of debt structuring, intellectual property. There's a lot of red tape with councils and fees. I've heard recently some of the stats say that 40% of the cost of bringing property to market is taxes. Goods and services tax on the way through, land taxes, stamp duty. You've also got company tax for these companies making a profit. So approximately 40% of bringing your property to market is tax. And so the government loves new property being built because it flows through the system. Now, the reality is $600,000 to $800,000 is not cheap, whichever way you look at it, to bring a new house to market, which is 3-bed, 2-bath, 100 square meters. What I'd love to see is if we could bring that land cost down, But is that even possible? And I want to break that down in a future video. I actually want to have a look at a case study of if we got community crowdfunding together and you were able to even raise the money to buy a site to then subdivide, but then you got to pay for the expertise of a developed project manager and actually bring that product to market. There's just so much risk involved with these things. And so that's why new stock doesn't come to the market so readily. And even when it does, it comes at a premium price because of the risk and work involved. Now, the data you see on screen is the average cost of building a new house state by state. So I gave you guys an estimate of $250,000 to $300,000, but when we look at the actual numbers from these building activity reports, you can see here that you're looking at around $450,000 for creating a new build in Queensland, and the cheapest you're looking at $335,000 in WA. So WA is definitely the cheapest market in terms of land and building. But if we're looking at Southeast Queensland, your cost of land is going to be in the vicinity of $375,000 plus $450,000 to do the build. So based on those numbers, you're looking at $827,000 to bring that new product to market, and that does factor in the builder's margin. So that makes sense. The builders are probably building those properties between that $600,000 to $700,000 and selling the end product for around $800,000 to $825,000. So what does this mean for property investment and homeowners here in the Australian market? It means that there's a floor on the cost of bringing new product to market, and it's very expensive, in my opinion, this new housing coming through. And so your established houses, which are on good block sizes and have the ability to add value to the homes, to spruce them up, to bring them up towards those new build homes, there's a lot more opportunity there. And that's why, as a buyer's agency in terms of Purpose Property, we specialize in the established markets here in Southeast Queensland. We currently cover 5 councils, including Brisbane, Logan, Moreton, Redlands, and Ipswich, and we'll be expanding to the Gold Coast at the end of 2025. So covering 6 councils across Southeast Queensland. And what we see in practice day to day is that the established stock has better inherent value and higher land values because the buildings have depreciated over time, but the land is the scarce resource. People want to be in New Farm in the city of Brisbane CBD. They want to be in Mount Gravatt, 10 Ks from the city with the transport and the schools and the infrastructure. They want to be within QE of work, but access to schools and amenities. And so it's about that balancing act. And that's where land values have risen in those scarce locations, which have been fully built out. Now, I've just made some more purchases myself, which sit well below this price point of bringing new stock to market. The 2 purchases I've made were below $650,000, and both the blocks were on 1,000 square meters of land in Ipswich City Council running along the train line. And in a future video, if you subscribe down below, I'll be sharing the exact locations and addresses of those properties, what I actually paid for them, and why I see so much inherent value in those specific deals. So if you're interested in those, make sure you subscribe below. Make sure you leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts about Australia's building prices for new build stock at this point in time. And click this video over here for more things real estate, renovating, and financial freedom. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.